my man Brandon Cruz. We're going to be talking through this two-gamer, this NBA slate on a day with golf and baseball starting and everything happening. We're here talking about the two-game NBA slate, Brandon's kind of slate. So, what's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I look, my favorite time to play and certainly come on and talk is when everybody's focused on other things. Like my biggest, ironically, today's the start of MLB. My biggest MLB win last year was on the Week 1 Sunday NFL day. And like because nobody played it. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with like playing like NHL or stuff on like a Sunday where like nobody's focusing on it. I think a lot of people just saw this as like a two gamer and just didn't want to focus on it and wanted to do uh, the MLB slate later. And I was like, oh, this is like the perfect time to play NBA. I want to come on here and talk about it.
Absolutely. No, I think look, I love that idea and that thinking in general. I wish there was a more exciting slate to do it with, but I think there's ways you could find. I mean, you can't play everybody on these things. I always try to identify things when I try to play. I always try to identify maybe the sub-teen percentages in basketball that make some sense as plays. It's hard to do on these two gamers. So let me just ask you, like when it comes to construction and building on these things, are you're finding yourself no matter what you're gonna have it looks like a chalk lineup compared to most slates. But what does that look like to you? Like, is there do you identify a certain guy you want to go and go there on, guy you want to go dating? How do you sort of approach this and how many lineups?
So at least for today, I mean, I'm not going to chase the 15 because I don't feel like throwing away like $300. But I'm just playing the 4 with 20 lines, and I just wanted to hop on here and talk about it. So like at least for me, the first thing that I personally do, and this is like I don't recognize half the people even in the player pool that I'm looking at, but like I want to be aware of what the public or what most builds are going to look like, and clearly a lot of love is coming down to the Atlanta side, and a lot of love is coming down to the Pelican side. Um, and like Giannis is projected to be the highest scoring player. However, um, I don't necessarily like the builds that end up using him. Mainly speaking, like lineup construction wise, like I'm seeing a lot of truly like stacked on like a lot of high projected lineups are true like 4 to 5 Atlantas and then 3 to 4 Pelicans, and that's it. And then like the one off is Giannis and stuff. And so like when I'm looking at these lineups, I just see it as a sense of like clearly um like CJ is probably like the best play on the slate. Like it's very rare that he doesn't work out. Like there's like outside of an injury, I don't or foul trouble, I don't see like CJ not performing here. But like dude, I understand that like the blowout risk is possible for Boston. I know Atlanta played yesterday, and we don't even know if Murray's going to play today or not because like he was questionable yesterday. He's still questionable here. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play. But the
Based on the
fact,
spread, I would tend to agree with you.
yeah. So like even with that, like Boston is not having like any ownership at all. Like
Yeah.
and those lineups aren't projected well, like in terms of like building with the Boston guys for me. And so if Giannis is still projected to be the highest point like scorer, like probably scoring around like 50 to 57 points, I don't think that this is a day that like Giannis is going to drop like mid to high 60s or 70s. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think you need to pay up for Giannis, and you could very easily just get to Tatum, Brown, Porzingis. Like I would want to lean more as like, and not even one-offs, but like I'd want to get like 2 to 3 Boston guys in a majority of my lineups just to be different, especially when it's such a chalk slate and literally everything's building away from Boston. Like if they blow them out, it's because like they're scoring well. Like
Right.
that's where I'm at. Like that's kind of why I'm excited because I'm like I guess I'm just gonna lean Boston and and just play the rest of the chalk from the Pelican side, and then play the value from Atlanta because you'd still be playing them anyway if you're paying up for Giannis or other guys. So I don't know. Like I want to be like over the field on Tatum, on Brown and Porzingis, and even White. Like White, even if you, in my opinion, even if you don't want to chase Boston, like White seems like a guy who would still be fine, and regardless of the situation that happens in the first game, whether it's a blowout or they somehow keep it close. So I don't know. I just like
He
the
actually is one
Boston.
of their best performers in blowouts in general because he ends up getting the extra like 4 minutes of run that the other guys don't get because he's with the putting it away team, but he doesn't quite play the last few. It's a really good setup. So I like what you're saying, and we have a nice little narrative for those of you guys who are out there who know me from NBA. If you want to build a nice narrative with actually a good lineup that makes a lot of sense, well, you've got DeJounte against his former teammate, and they were battling for the same job in Derek White. They coming from San Antonio, and you've got CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard from Portland. So kind of an interesting little. These guys were coexisting in the backcourt. It was always a question of whether they could coexist together, and they're actually facing each other both of them tonight. And I like all four of those plays separately from the narrative. A little bit of an echo I'm getting, Brandon. Are you hearing that?
I am. I don't know if it's. I don't believe it's on my end because I personally wore the headset today, so there wouldn't be one.
Oh, it seems like it's gone now. At least a little bit better. It's still there a little bit. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Maybe my mic is. No, it looks like it's working. All right. Anyway, it's not a big deal. But I like that idea. I like the idea of getting to. For me, like I would say, like my first build had those guys all in, except for DeJounte. It had Derek White, Lillard, and McCollum. And I think McCollum is like a hard one to fade just based on like. It would take a really weird kind of a game for him not to get there. And it's really hard to like build lineups even by hand where you don't end up with like 3 from New Orleans. But I would encourage people to try. You know what I mean? Like, or try to use. I guess there's really not a low on piece of New Orleans, but try to use. Don't use Giannis as the run back. Use Lillard. Like I was saying before. I think Lillard's going to be the one. He's projected to be like 15-20% owned. I think he's probably going to end up at 10% owned. I like the idea of doing that as a way of getting different. That's always one of my biggest questions: is how do I get different on the slate? You mentioned the Boston idea. I like that, and I like the idea of adding Lillard to the things. Not paying all the way up for Giannis. I like the way the builds look a lot better. Personally. So the big thing is with DeJounte questionable. Man, I don't know. Like he should logically play because of where they're at, I guess. But it is a back-to-back, and he was already banged up. I sort of thought he would play last night and sit tonight, but I thought if that happened that we would get that news by now, and we don't. So I'm a little. I don't know if we can really decide what to do. And if he's out, I can tell you right now that there's going to be a lot of guys who look great. You're going to have a hard time. You're not going to fade Krejci. You're probably not fading much Bogdanovich. But I also would encourage everybody to play some Dylan Windler. That's an off the board play I can get on board with, even if Murray plays, who could end up getting a blowout run anyway. So, yeah, they're getting the echo also. I don't know what that is. I haven't had that in a while. Let me see.
Yeah, because I'm hearing it. I don't even have the YouTube stream open. Like that's.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's odd. Huh. All right. Well. Anyway, so with that said, have you done like an early run of your builds? Do you have an idea of like what kind of exposure you're going to be getting versus the field yet?
Yeah, so I mean that's mainly what I've been goofing around with for like the last 20-ish minutes, trying to figure out what I wanted to be at. So yet again, like I think I'm just going to play 100% CJ. 'Cause, like if I'm going to do 20, I might as well just like lock in the guy who is most likely going to work in every situation. I want to be. Like my highest owned guys right now are probably CJ, Zion, Bogan, which I think the field is also going to play. Like those are clearly like probably the best plays. At least I would imagine, just because they're popping up even when I'm goofing around and trying to change things. But I'm probably going to try and get to like 35 to 25% of Tatum, White, and Brown. I think those are the only true stands. And I'm probably not going to play Giannis today. I mean, those are my only true stands. And I'm mainly right now, I'm just trying to figure out the main construction that I want to land on. Because I really don't like the main thing I'm trying to avoid. And like I'm actively going in this direction. Like a lot of the good lineups, like I said, are like 4 to 5 Atlanta guys, 3 Pelicans, and I would like to try and get to less Atlanta guys. Like if I'm going to sacrifice a team to try and get less on, I'd rather it be the Atlanta guys and less Murray misses it. Like if that happens, well then you got to play him. But that's mainly what I'm trying to figure out right now is how to get 2 to 3 Boston guys into these lineups right now.
I like that. I mean, I really like that idea, and I think that you could, with Boston, you could sort of always take your things. I do like the Derek White situation. He's my favorite. And I think that if I had to pick another one, it would probably be Kristaps, then Jalen, and then Tatum. But I like all. I mean, I'm good with all of them. The only one I probably wouldn't mess with coming off the injury is Holiday. But even that, I think I could talk myself into it.
So what exactly are you playing tonight? Like, are you doing like single entry since it's just?
I'm just playing a couple of hand builds in the 15 and what was it, the 40? Yeah, and the 23 max. Like I just played a few things. This is not my normal day. I wasn't planning on playing, except for that we're doing a thing I wouldn't have been playing. So I just threw a few things in just to have a little bit of fun. But I got I like the like it's a back-to-back, and I think Fernando should be like a near lock here, and he's being treated very, very differently because I don't think Capella is going to be able to play that many minutes on back-to-back nights. So that's like another stance that I would take is just be well over on Fernando, probably under on Capella, over on Bogdanovich, probably. I don't know about with Murray.
So it's interesting that because I've been listening to, very sparse content clearly because nobody's covering NBA on this stuff. But people I have a lot of Fernando right now in my lineups, and oddly enough, I never use this as this happened yesterday, so it'll happen again or whatever. But in my line that I ran yesterday that I cashed and everything I entered with, I had Fernando as my center at 4,100. And him right at 25 points, that's literally all I would want from him. I mean, it worked yesterday. I'm not saying, it worked yesterday, it'll happen again. But I'm not concerned about him not performing at all, especially in a blowout. That is where I would want to chase him. Especially if they pull Capella, I would just want to play Fernando. And so at least for me, because when I was going through to try and figure out where people would play or where ownership would come through, I'm personally not concerned about Fernando at all. I'm actually more comfortable just leaning into playing him today, with him and CJ being the two guys that I might just lock in my 20 lines and then just build drastically different in other positions. But I think those two are my favorite plays, actually.
Yeah, and that makes that definitely makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, you'd take it from Fernando, but I actually think there's more. I think he's a better play. Let's put it this way: I think he's a better play on this 2-gamer than he was last night on an 8-gamer, and his ownership is not going to be that much different. It's kind of weird that way. What did he end up with owned actually? Because he was actually
he finished with 25.25 points. I don't know if he actually went the stat line. I don't know if that matters.
Do you have any idea what his ownership ended up at?
Yeah, he had in the 15 yesterday he was 11.4.
Oh wow.
In the single entry stuff that I was in, I'm
guessing he might have been even lower.
Let me see.
That would be because we had the Duop Reith situation and Jackson Hayes. So I'm guessing he would have been lower, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and then in the smaller pick and roll, he was 13.7.
Yeah. Okay. So Jolly's asking about, again, I never understand it. I love Jolly. I never know where he gets these questions from. The Trey Murphy versus Herb Jones. They're such different prices to me. I don't even think of things like that. But I would say that I think they're both good plays, and I would end up with more Murphy in this spot, depending on my builds, which again, if you're playing Giannis and you're deciding between them, you're probably playing Herb Jones because you need the money. But in general, I wouldn't be playing Giannis, and I'm not playing Giannis. I'm gonna play more Trey Murphy probably than Herb Jones. Do you have any idea what exposure you'll have to those guys?
No, because I have no idea why. For me coming in and out, I don't understand why.
Because Alvarado,
or maybe it's not that I understand. I would lean more to the question he actually asked you. If you could elaborate why that isn't necessarily a discussion. I know it's 62 versus 51, but I'm assuming that it's a strong forward position that he's building with, because you don't need to use all the salary today.
Yeah, but you should be in basketball. You shouldn't be leaving too much on the table, especially when it's as tight as it is right today. There's no specific value that stands out especially that's not like, you know, the value that stands out is 7K and 8,900 as the best point per dollar plays, right? So the problem with trying to decide between like two totally different prices, two totally opposite types of players. Herb Jones is a 3-and-D guy who can do a little bit of everything, but doesn't really, that's not his thing. Trey Murphy's a gunner. He's going to come in and shoot. He's gonna be much more aggressive offensively. He's much more likely to score 20 real life points. That doesn't mean, and Milwaukee's not like a huge high turnover team, but they turn it over enough and they move fast. So I can see why both are good plays for different reasons. But if you want upside, Trey Murphy. But in general, it's just 1,100 is where I start. Like if you're like anything at like 700 or above, I consider like in a different price tier almost. So you get to like the 11K, 12K guys. So I guess like roughly 10% of your salary. Or sorry, I'd say like 15% of your salary difference is where I would start like looking at it as like, oh, that's totally the play in my head. You know what I mean?
I got you.
And neither of them have to be relied on. You know what I mean? They're options 3.5 and 5 of their offense, you know? Behind, you know, McCollum, Zion, Valanciunas while he's in the game. That's why I say 3.5. It's probably more like 3 for Murphy. And the other thing is Herb Jones is more likely to play more minutes. Jordan Hawkins could always get hot and take away some of the minutes from Trey Murphy. But I just think the upside of Murphy is something I wouldn't want to pass on in this matchup. I think that he would be, I guess if I was like a multi-entry, he'd be like a 90% for me today. And I got
you. So, okay, I got a question. So was this total, like with Atlanta, was that assuming that Murray sits or is involved? Because he is going to play tonight.
He's in now. This is assuming that he's in.
That he's okay.
They only have 10 available bodies, and they're on a back-to-back, so you'd imagine that they would try to spread the minutes around a little bit, and probably they'll be quick enough to give up. Like it's pretty rare home teams give up in the NBA, but if they're down like 25 at the end of the third, I don't think you're going to see DeJounte coming back to start the fourth. Whereas if they had multiple days off, I think he would. You know, if they're playing at home.
So like clearly if he missed, then it would like bring up more opportunity for other people. But like with him playing at 96, expected to be in a game that loses, like do you, at least from where I'm at, like do you not play him in that sense then? Like is he more likely to not pay off his salary in a game like this?
It's possible, yeah. But the problem, like I would have a hard time playing Tatum without playing him. Because I think that it's less common that Tatum goes nuts in a game where DeJounte Murray is not keeping them close. Because if you watch their offense, the way that Atlanta runs it, it is so Murray heavy. I mean, I'm looking at the usage. Actually, the usage is a little lower than I would have thought, 25 to 35 basically in the current situation. Right? Actually averages out right around 30. Pretty high, but not like quite as high as it seems when you're watching. I feel like when you watch him play, it just feels so DeJounte focused. But I think it'll fade away a little bit. That's not the problem is, if you're talking about the same price for me and Tatum, I think I would probably limit Tatum personally to my lineups where I am playing DeJounte and probably play like Derek White's where I'm not playing DeJounte. Something like that. Because you're spending that extra money. You know what I'm saying? That's just my
yeah.
I think it's right. That's it for me pretty much. And then Jolly's saying he's playing both of them. I think that's totally fine. I don't have a whole bunch more to go over. I'm happy to listen. I know my voice is echoing on here. I don't know why. But Brandon, if there's anything else you want to touch on, please feel free to do so. These little two gamers are hard for me to over talk on sometimes.
Yeah, no, I mean, with Murray being in, that was really, at least for me, the only question that I had since I believe Holiday's playing as well. So like the two question marks that we had on this slate, we basically don't have to worry about them, last minute or whatever. I think that's mainly it. I was just happy to hop on here and like kind of talk out loud to see if my Boston thing was insane.
No, I like the idea in general. I just don't think you necessarily need to go the tape, like you go the Brown route, because then you're saving the money and they can get there in a blowout, but it's hard for Tatum to get there. He can get there in a blowout, but it has to be so specifically done where it's just him doing the scoring, and Boston is spread out. But like, whereas like a guy like Jaylen Brown could lead the unit when Tatum comes off the court in the third quarter and he and Derek White would end up starting the fourth quarter and continuing that, expanding the lead while the other guys just sat. That's just the way that it usually goes to me.
No, I got you. I need to know that because like that's something that I'm not going to know.
Right. And honestly, I sometimes knowing that stuff really kills you, because watch tonight. It's going to be like the nuts to have like Tatum, no Murray, only one Atlanta guy, like that. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, I'm just saying the logical probabilities. It doesn't mean that there's no guarantees in these things. We know how it goes. MJ is asking about Jordan Hawkins. So I love Jordan Hawkins as a tournament dart. The problem is he's going to be 40% owned. In that case, I would just sort of jump off that train. I'm only getting to plays like that if I was playing Giannis. Did you get to much Jordan Hawkins?
Yeah, so like no matter how I went, like Hawkins was like my 5th highest owned guy.
Yeah, I understand it. It's just the only thing I'm saying is that there's definitely some variance with that one. It could be a 5 fantasy point night, and it could also be like a 30. It's sort of like the Isaiah Joe play from last night that won all the money, and the case in Wallace on the flip side, it's one of them's going to get 5 and one of them's going to get 35. That's just what happens, and that's why, maybe because I sided so much with Murphy, that I'm not as interested in Hawkins, because I do see that the only way, not the only way, the strongest way Murphy fails to me is if he's really ice cold, or if Hawkins gets really hot. I could see him losing minutes in either of those situations. All right, guys. Well, this is the smallest group we've done this for, but we appreciate everybody hanging in there. If there's any more questions or thoughts, we'll give you another 30 seconds to drop them in. For those of you talking baseball, I did not have a good first day, but it's kind of tilting because I did stack the low-owned Dodgers, who I believe are the highest scoring team on the slate. But my pitcher, I got a 1 from one of my pitchers, and it's rough. Just rough when that happens. I embraced the variance. I knew what I was getting into. I decided to make the move. And of course, the Dodger stacks with the other 6 pitchers are the ones that are going to win everything. So, you know what? You get part of it right. We'll put it together soon. It was certainly a fun beginning when you see yourself winning like $90,000 for the first 45 minutes. And it's everybody's on the same time zone too. Like there's no later game.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Dude, I don't know, man. Like especially like in the big one that everybody's played, like MLB just seems like you're just going to be burning money until like stuff hits. Like I don't think I would have the financial capability to just play MLB every day. Even if I hit something like once every 3 weeks, I don't think I could survive. I think I'd just burn through everything.
I get that. Like for me, it's funny because like NBA historically after the first 2 months of this year, I should say. First 2 months were really good. Everything has been horrible basketball wise for me. Like horrible. I only thought things like that could happen to me in MLB because, like what you're saying, like MLB, it's also the only game where literally a little kid just happens to click in and they could literally accidentally click on the right lineup, the optimized lineup. It'll never happen in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like you have to have a little thought behind something, or at least have projections, something to go on. MLB, you could literally never look at a projection thing. You could do nothing and just happen to hit the nuts way easier than anything else. But knowing things, you could also go, I've talked to some of the guys who have won the most money in this game, and you go through a year of losing and you're just like, oh, I just lost. In these guys' cases, they lost millions of dollars. They're okay with it because they know eventually that their edge is there. At some point, you got to start questioning it, But it's just crazy, man. And like you, I don't have the money to burn through it like that. But I like to do the thing in MLB where I play like sort of like 3, like mid-tier lineups. I usually play 1 big lineup. And occasionally I'll play 1 big one on each site. But I like the 3 mid-tier ones, and I like to do like a 20 to 40 sort of build. But I do it all by hand. This year I'm just planning to do a little more scripting because Sheets wins every night. Maybe that's what's convincing me.
Yeah. I mean, I only want using Sheets' stuff. Like in MLB and NHL, like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing with those builds. I throw that stuff in the Saber Sim. Like I'll mess with like to make sure I have the correct stacks and stuff. Yeah. But past that, like I don't know. Dude, last year I didn't know like what the strike zone was. I didn't know like how to read baseball. Like it was hilarious because I'd never watched baseball. I had no interest in it growing up. And some of the DFS guys that I talked to were like laughing at me because I'd be winning. I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, do we still have like a 7th inning stretch? Like
it would literally be like what me winning at NASCAR is what it would be.
Yeah.
It would be basically that's the equivalency, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything, and I knew names from the past. I'd accidentally seen races when I was out at bars in different points of my life, but I had no idea what some of the rules were, the strategies. Like when you were talking at first, like my brain broke when you were trying to explain. I'm like, wait, so what? You don't play anybody who's in this, like not even one, even if it's going to be, and I'm like, no, you can't do it. And I didn't realize the points worked, but it, you figure it out a little bit. And I actually want to get into some of those once we get down to just one season again, baseball, and maybe there's less, site stuff I can do, but I'd love to get into it and try to understand it a little bit better. Anyway. So, any other thoughts, Brandon, before we get on out of here?
No, I think that's it. I think the main takeaway that I'm going to have, since I did like Boston, I'll probably, well, at least personally, try and have White and Brown be the main people that I have overweight on from Boston. I'm still going to have Tatum just because I'm stubborn, but that's probably the main shift that I'm going to at least focus on. And then I have half an hour to try and figure out what exactly the actual lineups I want to play, but that's mainly what I'm going to spend the next half hour doing.
Nice. I'm going to throw out again, I know he's banged up. I know that it's whatever with Lillard. I'm just saying that I am actually thinking that this is one time I'm pretty good at spotting ownership things, and I don't believe he's going to be 20% owned. I think this is the guy who ends up like 7-8%. And I think it's worth taking a gamble on that personally. I really do. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's where I'm seeing. Maybe it happens. I don't know. I'm thinking more high buy-in stuff, or single entry. I just don't see people clicking that button when you have Zion at the same price, CJ at 1,600 cheaper, and he's like 50th on the line of projected players. I just don't. Guys like that don't get on in these spots. So I'm going to call that all the projection sites have that one wrong. That's my bold take, and he ends up lower owned, and I'm just going to take low ownership all day in that situation because you get the hot Damian Lillard, you get points in your cruising. All right, guys. Good luck to everybody. Brandon, always great to see you, man. And hopefully you guys crush it. Let's have a great baseball season and get some fire in tools in the NBA.
Yeah, good luck.